Committee meeting of December 6, 2007 is called to order. At this time, we would like to excuse Councilman Brown, and we would like to welcome Mr. Redland for joining us. We're also anticipating favorable comments this morning from John on value of time to the city for attendance at these meetings. Any comments, Mr. Redline?
You know, for as much time as I spend here, you'd think that I'd be more tied to my calendar, but I spend my time at my desk for the most part, and I don't have to tune that thing in very often.
I'll take that as a compliment that I'm long-winded, therefore you're required to spend more time in this meeting than other meetings. This meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. The first matter of business will be the agenda item 3, approval of the final minutes for the July 19th, 2007 Audit Committee meeting. Are there any corrections or additions? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Agenda item 4, discussion of possible action on scheduled meeting dates for 2008, Thursday, January 17th, Thursday, April 17th,
No,
24th. There's a correction to my agenda. April 24th, Thursday, July 17th, Thursday, October 16th. The purpose is to establish the quarterly audit committee meetings for the calendar year 2008. This is required to be established during the fourth quarterly meeting of the preceding year. Are there any questions or discussions? I would accept the motion.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item 5, discussion and possible action on the request from Fire and Rescue to perform an audit of overtime practices within the Fire and Rescue Information Technologies Unit. Mr. Snelby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City Auditor's Office will not work on any large projects not on the annual audit program without first obtaining authorization from the Audit Committee. The exception to this is cash counts, investigations, control reviews, or other items assigned by the City Council in a City Council meeting. Mike Myers, the acting fire chief, Las Vegas Fire Rescue, has requested that the City Auditor's Office perform an audit of overtime practices within the Fire Rescue Information Technologies Unit. This project is not on the annual audit program or audit plan, and I recommend approval of this request.
Is there any discussion?
Was not anticipated, or what's the reason for that?
No, we didn't anticipate it, and Fire Rescue had some issues that they wanted us to look at as far as that's not a planned audit.
Unanticipated by them as well?
Unanticipated by them.
Caused by staff members or something?
I'm not sure what the genesis of it is, but I know that they didn't have enough time to talk to us before when we were formulating our audit program or audit plan. So I know it's come up since that time.
Does this cause you to have human resource concerns on your staff?
Every time that we take one of these projects on, it means we have less time to expend on what we have on the audit plan. So there is a cost involved in human resource cost involved in doing any of these issues. In fact, we've got 3 of them that are on the agenda today. So the rule of thumb is that if we can do it in 40 hours or less, we won't even bring it to you because we can turn it out in just almost no time at all. If it's going to be more than that, well, then we're going to come and let you know that we want to do that or that we've had a request to do that. We've been fairly responsive to requests by the city manager's office and city staff related to these types of arrangements, but so that's why it's actually on there. And like I said, it is a it does cost us. It's not a free thing. We have to devote staff to it. We'll have to put it on the schedule, and then we'll have to schedule some audit and field work time and then reporting time. So at this point, I don't know how difficult it's going to be and how much time it's going to take, but I do estimate it will take more than that 40 hours.
And in light of the fact that I see that you recommend doing it, I would have no further question.
I have a general comment, and Rad may want to or may not want to respond to this. In years previous and days previous, we have encouraged various departments to seek out and through the city auditor's office for such types of audits. Typically, from our experience, this has been for the benefit of the respective agency or department head that's made these requests, because it goes towards improving their department. It helps to preserve, if you will, cost savings that otherwise may not be implemented, because it offers to them direction that they're seeking and attempting to pursue where they themselves may not have that same resource available to themselves. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement. Additionally, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, one of the good things about doing these types of audits is that when we get a request, like for example on this particular unit, well then it's on the schedule somewhere. And what it does if we get the request is we just shift it from where it is and take care of it now. So it's all work that's beneficial to the city. And our approach, or my approach, is that if the city's requested it, there must be a need in that area, either for someone outside of the internal organization, as we report directly to the city council through you, why then to have someone independent look at it. So I look at it as a positive thing, and in a way you can kind of kill two birds with one stone, because it's something that, you know, if it is something we would eventually do, it is taken care of now.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Snelling, if it wasn't our acting fire chief making this request, and it was just one of our rank and file, would your recommendation still be appropriate?
I would think that I would at least bring that to this committee, and the recommendation I may leave the recommendation up to the committee to decide whether, you know, there's reason enough to warrant expending those efforts, but you would see it.
Further discussion on this agenda item?
I'd just like to make a comment. If the chief of police requested and you agree, then I think that it should be done.
Is a motion?
Yes, it's the motion.
Second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 6, discussion and possible action on a request from the city manager's office to perform a performance comparison of Mulaski Community School. Mr. Snelden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Orlando Sanchez, the deputy city manager, has requested that the city auditor's office perform a performance comparison of Mulaski Community School with other existing leisure facilities in the immediate area, focusing on programs and participation. This project also is not on the audit plan, and I would recommend that we approve this request also. I would point out that in May of 2004, a duplication of services analysis report was prepared by Leisure Services that covers a lot of the issues that were in this. In fact, Mulaski's addressed in here. So this particular one, we would basically, what I see us doing with this, if we did this one, it would be less of an audit and more of an gathering evidence independently and presenting it so that a policy decision could be made on the level of service that Mulaski Community School is providing. So that this one would probably be one that we wouldn't normally, it wouldn't clear out some other item on the overall audit plan. This would be one that would be an addition. And once again, the city manager's office has requested on a few occasions us to do some work, and this is a lot. We would be independently looking at this and evaluating that, evaluating the data. So I think that's how they view us as enhancing the process.
Do we have any discussions or questions on this agenda item? If not, I would accept the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item agenda 7, discussion and possible, excuse me, action on a request from the Director of Finance and Business Services to perform a review of parking ticket collections. Mr. Snowden.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mark Vincent, the Director of Finance and Business Services, requested that the City Auditor's Office perform a review of parking ticket collections. In this particular case, because time was of the essence, permission to work on this project was tentatively given by the Chair and Vice Chair of the Audit Oversight Committee, contingent on ratifying that at this ratification by the entire committee at this meeting. So that's why it's on the agenda at this time for that ratification.
Do we have any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman.
I was just going to say we've discussed it before, so I'm ready to make motions if you have.
Well, I'm not ready for the motion,
Okay.
but I'm ready to hear Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Do we know what Mr. Vincent is trying to determine in this item? I mean, there's got to be something. We don't just ask for an audit of our parking ticket collections for no reason.
No. Councilman Wolfson, Vanetta Appleyard is here, and I assume she's representing Mark.
Yes, I am. We had some isolated. We have some instances.
Vanetta, could you come up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sit us up here, sir.
Acknowledge
Sorry.
yourself for the record, please.
Vanetta Appleyard, Manager of Financial Services. We had some instances where we noticed some discrepancies in our process and procedure. So we asked internal audit to be involved to help us to assess whether or not these were isolated instances or if we have training issues throughout the whole unit. So we felt with their help we could better enhance our process as well as determine if we've got particularly the training issues.
We're talking about a review of parking ticket collections. Is that an audit? Or is that a review of the way things are handled?
Well, what we anticipate, and which we're in the process of doing this now, is we've gone out and looked at all of the collections for a period, a year. I think we're only looking at Phil, just a year.
Basically, but we also have access to the multiple year data.
And what we're using some computer aided audit techniques where we look at the entire file, and so we look at all of the transactions, and then we set some criteria and pull some information out. We're looking for situations where tickets have been underpaid.
Okay. Are we isolating your review to just parking tickets?
Yes.
Or moving violations as well?
We only do parking tickets. Moving violations are handled in a different area.
What area is that?
I believe that's Metro, right? So courts, yeah.
And
This
also
is
the
just a-
misdemeanor court.
Right.
Didn't we have a big report that we were millions in the hole for 5-6 years? Wasn't that big report that you shared with us, and we
Yes.
had a great big discussion?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think Mr. Wolf wasn't here present, but there was a big file. I remember we went through it. It was like in millions in parking tickets. It wasn't collected for years.
Yes.
And we're hoping this will also, as
Right.
we've gone through that, we're trying to keep
Right.
improving that process.
I have a few questions, but is there anyone else that would like to, please come up to a microphone and identify yourself for the record.
My name is Bruce Snyder. I'm the General Counsel for the Las Vegas City Employees Association. We're here today. We have no objection to an audit of parking ticket collections being done to improve city operations in the future. Like all taxpayers, we want the city to be efficient and to collect the money that's owed. But we did have one instance of an employee who was disciplined, and I don't want to go into the merits of the case, for allegedly having waived some late fees in order to collect the parking ticket and whether or not that violated city policy. But one of the things that concerns us even in that case is that most of the allegations were more than a year old.
More than what?
A year old. And our collective bargaining agreement says that employees should only be disciplined for things that occurred within 30 days. So we welcome an audit, but we would, I believe, object to it being used to discipline other employees should more discrepancies be found out. There's no indication that any employee was attempting to hide anything. We're not even sure anything was done wrong to policy as it existed at that time. We understand that a new whole manual has recently been issued by management in that area, which will help the clerks in that area, who are our members, to know how to follow the rules. So, again, we don't mind this being used prospectively to find how it may be better to operate that area and to collect more money. We're all for collecting more money. But we don't want it to be used as a club against our members for things that may have happened way beyond 30 days ago.
Mr. Snowden, do you have a response to that?
No.
I do. The purpose of the city auditor is to do a historical review, to identify deficiencies, and to bring those deficiencies to the attention of the city. With respect to implementation for discipline purposes, that's beyond the scope of what the city auditor is asked to do. We
Correct.
do a historical audit for the purpose of identifying, once again, where discrepancies may exist, bring it to the attention of the appropriate department and powers to be to express it slightly differently. From where it's taken after that report is issued, then it's beyond the scope of what the city auditor will recommend with respect to disciplinary action.
Correct. We recognize the fact that the city auditor's office does not do discipline and what your role is in the city auditor's office. All we're saying is we would hope that once your report is issued, that it is not used by the appropriate management to go back, because I would imagine your report would take some time to even issue, which would make any transactions, if you're going back a year, even longer than a year old. So, we just wanted to put everybody on notice what our concerns are about the audit. And
And we
again,
appreciate what your concerns are and how you're expressing them. From the city auditor's perspective and from my perspective as chair, the scope of the city auditor's program, once again, is to identify where the deficiencies exist so that the respective departments can improve the system and correct whatever wrongs from implementation purposes, whether it's retro with that particular department or perspective. That's beyond the decision of the city auditor will make.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I do have another question, and it comes back to what was just raised here. What is the outstanding balance currently?
That I don't have I don't have the number, but I know we've made great strides in better collecting, and we've actually, I know we instituted one policy that's allowed us to collect $150,000 in just the past 6 months after the audit on delinquent tickets, sending out a third notice.
Okay.
So we're also in the process now of reviewing our collection agency to get a better track record on even those that are past 90 days old, so.
I approved, subject to subsequent ratification, as did Councilman Brown, this process to move forward. And I'm very much interested in this happening, partially because of the deficiencies for cash collections. The other interest and the other anticipated scope of this program, and Mr. Snowden and I have not had this discussion, is there a trend on where these parking tickets occur? For example, are there meters that are seldom used within the city, and it's reoccurring along the same stretch of road? If electronically you're able to determine the outstanding parking tickets, are you also able to identify the location where that parking ticket was issued, and then identify, are there a stretch, once again, of meters, for example, around doctor's offices, where people are trying to rush in and see their doctor, they sit there for 3 or 4 hours, and then receive a parking ticket? Would that be part of this report?
I noticed that Mr. Marmarowski was making notes. I think that he'll have an answer for that. If we can do that, we will get that information for you.
Does the electronic system, the IT system, permit identification?
At this point in time, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure of the answer on that one.
I would suggest consideration
We
for
will do that.
purpose, so at least the report can identify the full scope identification area.
Certainly.
Further discussion on this matter?
Just on a little follow-up, there's a record made when an officer gives a parking ticket. On the parking ticket itself, I'm pretty sure there's a location given. The question is, how do you input that data if you do it at all, and is there an efficient and not so costly manner of putting it all together in some report?
We'll see if we can do that. Additionally, I'm certainly getting a sense that there's an interest in the status report on collections. Perhaps we could have someone from Finance and Business Services come back next time, if you'd like, and have a report on that.
Strongly encouraged. Would you encourage it?
Yes, I would, because remember, we had a long discussion over this. It was very serious, and even the city attorney mentioned it, and, you know, that we were kind of behind and we were going to look into it, because, yeah, it was huge. And I remember, not exactly how, but they even had the address of the people that didn't pay, which was local, and it wasn't collected. You know, we talked about out of state, rental cars, but the locals were not even collected, and I was kind of curious why not.
Mr. Chairman, if a parking ticket isn't paid, are warrants issued for persons arrested?
I don't believe the warrants issued, but if we can isolate the car, we do put a boot on it.
Booted.
And they're
In other words,
booted.
if it's a repeat offender
We do boot.
who hasn't paid over a particular period of time, a boot will be put on that car.
We also try to notify the DMV if possible, so that when they renew their license on the car, that they have to pay those parking tickets before they'll be allowed to re-register the car.
Backup mechanism for enforcement. You know, this might be a question for the city attorney, but I'd like us to branch out farther. And if we're not agendized this, Mr. Redline, tell me to shut up, but into traffic tickets. Because I know that a person may be issued a ticket in the city of Las Vegas in April with a return court date in August or September, and then maybe they don't get a resolution until January. In many cases, there's long periods of time on moving violations I'm talking about. Am I going beyond the agendized item? Okay. The city attorney shook his head no, so I'm going to keep talking. So perhaps not in this review, but I'd like to have a continuing discussion on these same concerns vis-a-vis traffic tickets, not just parking tickets.
Mr. Slade?
The recommendation on booting cars, I think, came from didn't that come from a parking report that we did about 2000 or
2000, I think.
in about 2000? So this has been an issue that we've been dealing with. In fact, I think the report that Mark made was related to that particular audit on uncollected balances. But there's a big interest in this. And I did not answer your question, Councilman Wolfson. You asked me, is a review an audit?
They're terms of art, I understand.
A little bit terms of art. They're very similar. To me, a review has a much more limited scope, and an audit is much broader. That's
About the other ones.
when it comes to a performance audit. That's the way I look at it.
But for clarification from Mr. Wilson and other members here, we probably should reconsider terminology. I agree with you. A review is very limited in scope, but an audit is not an expansive scope. If we're seriously considering really digging into some of these issues, we should have agreed-upon procedures. The agreed-upon procedures go well beyond the scope of a review, well on the scope of an audit. But that's very time-intensive. And we would defer to you to make those recommendations as to which you felt to be appropriate at the time.
Mr. Kern, we audit under the Yellow Book, the General Accountability Office's Yellow Book, and there's a new, as of January the 1st, 2008, there's a new revision, so we'll take a look at that and see if we can't revise perhaps some of the terms of art as far as how we might describe these things.
And I would share the sentiments of Councilman Wilson with respect to traffic tickets, but is that municipal court?
It is. That's
Therefore-
our collection arm.
Therefore, that is not part of today's
Correct.
agenda item.
And the primary distinction relevant to Councilman Wilson's observation is that the traffic tickets are considered to be civil infractions. So we can make it painful for folks by immobilizing the vehicle, putting them on the list. And I'm making an assumption now that the traffic officers are equipped with the little computers that they use to issue all the tickets, that they are informed if we've got somebody who has unpaid tickets, and then we're a lot more efficient about the immobilization. We farmed the collection effort out to the commercial collection agency, and then, as was alluded to, we can make it even more painful by informing relevant administrative authorities like the DMV. So, but it all revolves around a civil effort. And as far as the scheduling and the timing, my understanding of it is I get the ticket, I'm informed that if I want to contest it, I do so by a certain date. If I have neither paid nor contested by that date, it just goes and becomes one of those collection matters. And if I never pass through Las Vegas again, maybe I'll get away with having stiffed us on that fine. But the parking tickets, right? And if I said traffic, pardon me, we used to use them interchangeably, but they're strictly civil.
One final comment, and then we'll leave this dead horse alone. The reason I brought up this audit review is because your request is for a review to be taking place. The gentleman representing the city employees used the term audit. And he said, I object to this audit being used, and that's why I wondered if there was a distinction that's been explained to me.
From time to time, people use that term interchangeably.
Thank you.
I accept it as being synonymous as well. But then I'm just a lay person and an accountant, not an attorney.
Yeah, but this is your stuff.
I appreciate Mr. Snowden's chair. Further discussion on this item? If not, I would entertain a approval for ratification. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and double second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda item 8, general report from the city auditor. Mr. Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently, the following audits or projects are in process. First of all, one slide up. There you go. Human Resources, Personnel Services, the Information Systems and Records. This particular one is being handled by Nancy Beatty, and it's in the planning phase. Finance, the parking ticket collections audit that we were just talking about. Mr. Marmorowski is in the fieldwork stages of that. Metro Police funding, Brian Smith is lead auditor, and that's in planning. Fire and rescue, fire prevention, and investigations. Nancy Beatty's working on that one, and that's in the reporting phase. Pool cash handling, that's actually being handled by a contractor, and that's in the reporting stage. Durango Hills YMCA contract, Nancy Beatty's the lead auditor, and that's in the reporting phase. Credit card reporting by Mr. Simo, and that one's on hold at this time. Citywide software, Philip Marmorowski's working on that one. It's in the fieldwork phase. Purchasing the professional services contracts, that's Mr. Marmorowski, and that's in the planning phase. In addition, we have 8 investigations that are ongoing. These are being handled by Mr. Phillips, and they're in process. And we have 2 control reviews that have been completed. This concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any questions or discussions?
Move to accept it.
It's been moved second. All in favor? Aye. Agenda item 8, report and possible action on the quantification of savings related to the implementation of audit reports. Mr. Snowden, please.
Thank you. The Audit Committee directed the City Auditor's Office to begin reporting to the committee the identified monetary savings as a result of implementation of proposed recommendations. At the last meeting, I committed to bring a pro forma report at this meeting, and included in your packet is an example of what what we could produce and what it would look like to identify benefits related to implementation of recommendations enumerated in the audit reports. If it's located, I think it's the first yellow-colored or goldenrod-colored example, and I used 5 categories. If you look on that first one on page 2, 5 categories. The identified savings, and that's literally talking about the hard dollars related to that. The second one are estimated savings, and those are savings that you actually can estimate and put numbers to. A third category would be compliance issues. There would be something that would be required compliance or existing controls, laws, or regulation is enhanced with the implementation of that particular recommendation. Economy and efficiency improvement, looking at things that will help us operate in a more economical and efficient manner. And the 5th category is kind of a catch-all, which is other benefits. It's some other type of a benefit that's not actually covered or not addressed in one of the other categories. One thing I will point out to you, I got a note from Mr. Marmorowski, and I used his report. You're actually going to see this report. I did these in a vacuum without using him, and he actually gave me some examples of some hard dollar figures which relate to this audit, which I didn't include in this example, which are talking about $6,900 per month that could be realized as a benefit from that particular audit. But conceptually, this is what I would think would maybe answer the question. Again, it's looking at hard dollars, it's looking at estimates, and then it's looking at 2 other major categories when we have findings related to performance audits, and a 5th one that will more or less make a catch-all. So that's that. If that conceptually meets what you think would satisfy your request, why then we could begin working on this.
Would this be implemented on every audit conducted?
Yes.
So, for example, the special request from the acting fire chief, that would be quantified into savings as well?
Yes, it would.
Whether-
If we issued a report, we would, pardon me, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but if we issued a report, we would do this.
Okay, let me and again, maybe I'm putting the wrong hat on here, identified savings, estimated savings, compliance issue, economy or efficiency improvement, other benefits. Will this encompass a cost-benefit ratio in a format that will be, for example, if we determine that the audit of overtime practices identifies the way scheduling may be happening, would there be a cost-benefit ratio as it relates to the employees as well to show what the added costs are or what the added savings may be? Savings are nice, but a cost-benefit ratio would also dictate that if there's not a savings, then what's the added cost? But the added cost is required because of the specific need, in this case, using my example, for fire rescue. There's an added cost for having someone on overtime. What is that cost? There's an added cost or added benefit if you can realign scheduling. But if you cannot realign the scheduling of the employee, what's the cost?
If we were going to make a recommendation, and the recommendation resulted in some cost savings, it would be netted against any additional costs that would be incurred. Is that?
Well, what I'm looking at, I think you're missing a parameter. I think the parameter is, it's great to say we haven't identified savings, but if we cannot isolate and identify savings, and there's a cost because of this, that has to be incurred, what is that cost?
I think the chairman is recommending that there be an additional category.
Yeah.
Okay, and with this, I'm thinking about how I would in a practical manner would do that. If it was a situation where we made a recommendation, because these would be the only ones that we would address with this analysis, is if we had a finding and then we made a recommendation. If we made a recommendation and it increased, if it was an increased cost, then you want us to capture?
No, what I'm saying is that, let's use, and again, I'm using this only as an example for the fire rescue request here. Let's hypothetically say it costs X number of dollars for overtime. That overtime cannot be removed because of the specific needs that the city has. What's that cost? Or can the city save money because we've identified the additional cost by hiring an additional person, which would then save the city tax? What I'm asking for is, what's my cost to operate? When I walk in through my office each day and I turn the key, I need to know what it's costing me. That's what they're asking for here. What's it costing us? Take a look at it. How can we improve our system? What is that cost? What's the savings now that are being implemented? It's two different numbers. If you net the numbers, we don't see the full picture.
Okay. Are you talking about costs that you could call sunk costs, those costs that we're going to incur anyway?
Well, they may be sunk costs, and they may not be. They still may be discretionary costs.
Okay.
So you'll add something.
We'll add another area.
And that, Mr. Chairman, that may not necessarily be something that is relevant to FDR. Correct. But in the example the chairperson used, I think that it would be relevant to have that cost-benefit data in addition to these categories. I think am I speaking consistently with this?
Okay. We can certainly add a sixth category.
Further discussion? I would entertain a motion. Second. Is there a second?
Second.
In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item 10, discussion of possible action on audit of Metropolitan Police funding. Mr. Snelling, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I contacted Jerry Carroll, and he's the Clark County auditor, and supplied documents that I related to you previously, and Mr. Carroll has reviewed this with members of county management. I've had several calls into him, but I have not gotten any information back from him. I would like to make a suggestion on this particular one. This item keeps showing up on our open audits and projects. It's been there for quite a while. With your permission, I'd like to pull that off of there, but leave this item on the agenda still. One of the things about this particular work we were talking about doing is it goes back several years ago. In fact, it goes back 2 sheriffs ago, to Sheriff Keller. And so the official position about whether we could perform a review of the funding formula may be totally different from this sheriff. And what I'd like to do is I'd like, if we could, to close that audit out and then leave this as an agenda item on our agenda, and I will approach the county to find out not only if they want to participate in that, but also open dialogue with Metropolitan Police to find out if their opinion of how they want it handled has changed. In other words, I'm not going to drop it. I just would like to have it on there for a long time, and I'd sure like to clear it off of there. Because we really don't have anything active working on it other than just the talking that's going on.
Mr. Chairman, well, who caused this to be placed as an agenda item anyways, 8, 10, 12 years ago?
Well, what we wanted to do is, you know, a large part of our budget goes to Metropolitan Police Department for policing services.
The formula is set by statute, though, isn't it?
It is, but our thinking was that this was a good place to take a look at the data to see if the data and how the data was being handled was what it should be, if the standards related to that were up to speed. So what we initially started off doing was we went to Metro and we talked to them and we looked at some of the data, and we decided that what we would like to do is we would like to run some tests to see if the data that's going in is coming out with if there's an old expression with IT, garbage in, garbage out. We wanted to look at the data to see if the data was of a quality that was giving us a realistic and a reliable split, because that's what actually determines the funding. So as we began to talk with them, they came back and told us that we don't want to let you do an audit, the city, to come in and do this audit, and then have findings that are going to cost the county more money, and the county's going to raise the flag and say, "Oh no, this is not right," and then we'll be caught in the middle. And so what they said is that if you and the county will work together and do this, then we're okay with it.
All right, so you've been trying to work with the Clark County Auditor, and he's not been responsive? Is that what I'm hearing?
He's been somewhat responsive, but their staffing has changed. The Clark County Auditor actually works for the county manager, and that's turned over a couple of times since we started working on this. And there were a couple of studies done, and that was what I most recently supplied to them. And what I've been trying to find out from them is if they have an interest at Clark County to participate in this audit with us. And he's been...
Evidently not.
I might be able to give you a little help, and I don't know if the audit committee has had to address this, but it's perennially a painful subject for the city council. I think the statute says that when the sheriff merges with any other police department, and the statute would provide that North Las Vegas could dissolve their police department and become metro territory. But right now it's just the city of Las Vegas and the county. That we pay our proportional share. But the formula that have been used to calculate what our share of this, and it's everything from, you know, the tires and the fuel and the salaries and the equipment, has always been disputed. And there have been times when I can remember arguments over Metro utilizing a formula that had the number of calls for service. So if it was in a city area, you know, that's how we calculate against the larger portion of the county how much is ours. But, I mean, they were using calls for service where guys were parking their cars at City Hall. You know, police reporting to their station, which we are providing their space for, shouldn't be counted against us as if a city resident needed assistance. So the formula is something which I don't think you would ever want to recommend that we stop having the auditor at least try to work with the county to figure out and make sure it's fair. Whether or not we're ever going to be able to control them, I mean, the answer to that's probably no. But the more work we do on it, the more likely it is to be fair to the city of Las Vegas taxpayers. It's really hard to give them credit. It's hard to figure out.
Pay enough, and they think that they pay too much, obviously.
Yeah, and my recollection is that the number always shakes out somewhere between 43 and 47%. That's how much they say we absorb of their operating costs. Am I right? And it varies a little bit in there, but there's always been doubts in this organization that we should have to pay that much.
I think your comments are wise. I think that I would accept what Mr. Snelby is saying, and move to follow your recommendation, but I don't think we should let it go. I think
No.
there should still be some continuing effort on your part. But it seems to me that the effort isn't being received very well, so I'm not sure what more you can do, other than keep a tab on it and keep your eye on it, and keep working from our end, because if there are some disproportionalities, that's something that the city council should be aware of.
Brad, I have a question. What, you indicated you would like to close this audit. What do you mean by close this
Well,
audit?
Brian, can you go back one more, please? In the general report, we talk about, there it is, the third one down, Metro Police funding. That thing has been there for years.
Right.
I'd like to close that off of this open audits and projects and continue working on this with the committee. I mean, we don't want to stop this, because we need to gain some assurance in our mind based on some valid investigations that the data that's being collected is good, and that the way that it's being handled produces the funding split in a way that doesn't hurt the city. I mean, we need to do that. If we don't do anything else, we need to do that. But I would just like to close this off of this one particular part of the report, because it's just not moving that fast. But I'm not. I would leave it on as an item until we did find out what the county would allow us to do and what Metro would allow us to do.
Okay, when you say leave it on as an item, when I look at agenda item 8, will we leave it on a go-forward basis as part of what is today agenda item 8?
Yes.
Which are currently the following audits or projects or...
Well, actually, what I would do is I would prefer to put it as its own agenda item, so that we, just like I'm giving you a report on what we've done on item number 10, I would put it on as a reoccurring item on that for us until we came to some kind of resolution, rather than putting it on here, where a good part of the time when we have the meeting, nothing happens other than I say, well, Metro Police funding, Brian Smith's in charge of that, and it's on hold. I don't see that we get anything out of that. I'd rather put it on as an agenda item where I actually stand here and tell you, and we have some dialogue about what I've done and what I've been able to do.
If we close the audit, are we closing the opportunity to go back 12 weeks?
No.
Then what do you mean by close the audit? Closing the audit to me means you're issuing a final report. What are you issuing a report on?
I'm not issuing a report on anything.
We're not closing the audit.
Okay.
What are
I mean,
we
that's
doing?
fine. I'm just asking you, I just want to take it off of this part of the agenda and this part of my report. But if you would like it, I mean, we're not issuing a report.
Well, is there some internal control mechanism that you're going to accomplish by doing this? By removing it from this list, does it open up your office's ability to perform an additional project?
No, because we're not really expending any effort on this at this point, other than
What
what
are you
I...
accomplishing then?
Honestly, I'm tired of looking at it. I'm tired of coming in here and telling you that it's on hold.
But you're going to have to tell us at our next meeting, because it's going to have its own separate agenda.
I know, but we tend to move things off of the audits and projects list when we get them complete, and they're done in a relatively timely manner, and depending upon, probably not as fast as some people would like, but a lot faster than some others.
Suggestion, because if we separate it and make it its own agenda item, it's going to get more important.
Yeah, it is going to
It's not
get
going to be lost in the list.
Right.
It's going to have its own importance, being agendized by itself. And after this lively discussion, when we come back in January, I'm sure Paul's going to jump down your throat saying, what's going on with the county and what have they done?
I can't wait.
I thought so.
Well, I'm ready to make a motion unless there's other discussion, Mr. Chairman.
I would entertain a motion. I'm anxious to hear what this motion is, because I'm still not, I don't know what Brad is saying at this point. When you're saying a separate agenda item, is it going to appear just as it's appearing right now?
As
With
a
no
sep-
action to be taken? Or what is it?
No, it would be like item number 10. It would show up as a discussion and possible action each time until we do something with it.
Okay, but from Councilman, my concern is that if we close, quote unquote, close the audit, have we lost the opportunity to go back 12 years and the city recover money?
In my opinion, no. I think we,
we're
Mr.
not-
Redline may have an opinion of
But I'd
that.
like to clarify that we're not closing the audit.
My motion will not be to do that.
Thank you. I would entertain your motion.
Thank you. My motion would be to accept the report from Mr. Snelling and to accept his recommendation to remove the discussion and possible action, to discuss the entry Metro Police funding and to remove it from the general report by city auditor and to move it over to its own separate agendized
Okay,
item
that's fine.
without closing the audit
Yeah, that would be fine with me.
requiring a report therein.
Is there a second?
Yeah,
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Agenda item 11, discussion and possible action on a report from Information Technologies regarding the audit of city cell phone charges. Mr. Snell.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mike Hogan with Information Technologies is present, and he, I believe, is going to have a report. Now that I've got everybody nice and warmed up for you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, man.
We're getting hungry, too.
I didn't bring any refreshments, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have. Mike Hogan, Information Technologies Division Manager. As requested at the previous audit committee meeting, I believe in July,
Yes.
there was we had an audit of our cell phone systems, and there was a request to have a follow-up on where we were at, because we were just beginning to work on some reports and implementing some systems that were going to occur. So I'm prepared to provide you with a report of where we're at today, with some indications of some savings of what we've done as a result of the audit. This is part of what Mr. Snelding alluded to earlier. Beginning last month, we started distributing quarterly department reports to each department for their review, to reply to us based on shared cell phones for appropriate assignment. In other words, a cell phone that isn't assigned to any one person, but it's a shared phone that multiple people use within a department. There are instances where that occurs, but we're looking for the departments to review that for appropriate assignment. Again, unassigned cell phones is basically kind of the same thing. Multiple cell phones or vendors assigned to the same user. That happens specifically, the majority of the time, we have wireless access cards, and we have cell phones, and we have two different vendors. We only get our wireless access cards from one vendor. We get cell phones from two vendors. So a person's name may show up on that list, on both lists from both vendors, one being a cell phone, one being the wireless air card. The report shows what the device is so the department can review and make sure that if there's that dual cell phone from two vendors, why is that? And then we can determine that and fix that problem. We're also looking at cell phones with no or minimal use. Is it appropriate to have that phone or not? The departments have to tell us that. It may be an on-call situation. It may be a spare phone situation. We're letting the departments tell us what that is, but it's just a review so they can tell us we can maybe save some money in that. Phone numbers assigned, that's actually part of another one, never mind. Cell phones for high use, with high use for appropriate use. The report shows the actual minutes that everybody uses per month on their cell phone for a 3-month period for the entire quarter. Certain job responsibilities within the city could require a higher amount of cell phone use than other jobs, just to make sure if they have high use, it's appropriate with their taskings. That's that quarterly report that we started distributing in November. We've gotten some of those back. We had asked to have them back by the end of November because of some of the other things going on within the organization. Some people are a little delayed. Hopefully, by the end of next week, we should have all of the reports in. We've made adjustments to the system. A lot of departments have come back and said, make these adjustments for me, so there has been some adjustments made. Savings on that hasn't necessarily been quantified yet because those adjustments are just occurring. We're also doing monthly reports for long-distance cell phone usage, and those are going to begin this month for them to review. Those reports are going to include whether the phone numbers or the phone calls to a same number indicated both as business and personal is appropriate. There's times when somebody may use their city cell phone. For an example, I may be calling Councilman Wilson during work period for a business issue. If I'm Councilman Wilson's personal friend, I may be calling him after hours on my city cell phone, or for whatever reason, that's what I use. It may be appropriate to be personal and business with the same person, but we're looking for that as a review item just to make sure. The departments review these, and then we'll review that with the individuals. Long-distance phone calls with a duration of longer than 30 minutes, just to validate that that's appropriate. A lot of meetings, a lot of times we do a long-distance call for a meeting and things like that, but we're just using that as a beginning threshold. We may adjust that threshold either up or down. That's our starting point, is 30 minutes. And then also, we're going to look at some of the locations. There's been some concerns in the audit report about the locations of where some of these long-distance phone calls were occurring. So we're going to have the departments again review that for appropriateness. We are in process already with a quarterly vendor review, where we meet with our 2 cell phone vendors, and we meet to make sure that the cell phones are assigned to the proper plan for the best cost savings for the city. We also review the miscellaneous cell phone charges to make sure that those are minimized and identify where they're coming from so that we don't have to pay charges that aren't appropriate. And then we also look at international and third-party long-distance calls, because those should be very, very minimum or non-existent. So if those are on there, we need to determine what that is. Additionally, we compare the bills that we get with the vendors to our database that we have to make sure that we're only paying for the phones that we say we have. So we don't pay for phones we don't. If there's a discrepancy, we meet with the vendor and we talk to them about that. Those are the reviews and the reports that we kind of put in place as a result of this. Another item I'd like to report on is cellular reimbursement. One of the audit items was a question of the level of reimbursement for personal calls back to the city for cell phone usage. Since the city policy allows for individuals to use cell phone for personal business, but they have to reimburse through the system that we have. After we reviewed the costs associated with it and some industry standards, it's been determined by management that beginning January 2008, we're going to be increasing the cell phone reimbursement rate. It's going to be increased from the current level of 6 cents per minute to 15 cents per minute. You're kind of getting hot news on this because it hasn't been officially mentioned yet, but I wanted to mention at this committee meeting. It's going to be sent out to the masses next week.
What does it cost the city? What does the city pay?
The city pays, we don't pay per minute. We have pooled plans, and we pay a monthly cost per phone.
What is that, a projection for fair reimbursement for usage?
What we did is we looked at the cost associated with it. We took the difference of what a cell phone would, because we had costs for plans for what a cell phone was with no minutes and a cell phone with the minutes that we had, with extra minutes on it. And we used that formula to come up with this 15 cents, which was appropriate. We had to blend the 2 different vendors, and that it's not an exacting science, but we came up with this as a fair amount of money for reimbursement. Additionally, as part of what we did, one of the recommendations was to make sure that all of our phones were on pooled plans, in other words, pooled minutes, so we never got charged for extra minutes. We have that in place with one of our vendors. We put that in place with the other vendor. We also adjusted the pool plan with the first vendor. After 2 months of billing with our new pooled plans with the vendors, we're averaging a monthly savings of $6,900 a month. So just as a result of pooling those minutes, the city's realizing $6,900 a month in savings. So some good return on what we've done in that area. We've also revised our internal billing process, where previously the users paid the money based on what their bill was directly to the vendor. It was an internal chargeback through the charge org situation plan process. What we determined was by putting these pooled phones, in these pooled plans, some of the phones have an inordinate high number of minutes to increase our pool to the limit that we need to. Some have a real low number, so we can no longer charge back that way and have it appropriate to the organization. So what we did is we put a standard monthly charge together, and if you have a cell phone for the city, or a wireless access card, or a PDA, combination PDA cell phone device, the department now pays one flat rate to the internal service fund for communications, which is within the information technologies department. And the bills that are paid to the vendors are paid through that fund also. So we're paying right now that the cost for a cell phone is $39 a month. A wireless access card is $60 a month. And a PDA cell device, like similar to a BlackBerry or a Trio or a Motorola Q device, is $75 a month. Those have been in place since September 1st. We did that transition. There was little or no issues or concerns, and very little and minimal budget impact. We did a study on the budget impact before we implemented it to make sure that by going to the standardized area, people's budgets wouldn't be unduly impacted. They are not.
Question?
Yes.
Is Metro part of this?
They are not. They are not. This is strictly the City of Las Vegas. That concludes the information I have in my report. I'd entertain any questions. I'd also possibly entertain closing of the audit as a result of this, or not knowing if you need me to follow up or not.
Questions, discussions?
Mr. Chairman, how many City of Las Vegas employees do we have? Do you know the number? Somebody's got to know the number.
Total, off the top of my head, I want to say it's around 3,400.
I think that's right.
How many of those have city-issued cell phones?
We have approximately 1,700 cell phones issued throughout the organization. Cell phones, wireless air cards, PDAs.
That's where I was going next.
Total.
That 1,700 figure includes all of those.
Yes.
And does the City of Las Vegas pay for all of the business usage of those items by city employees?
Yes.
In other words, the personal usage they reimburse.
Correct.
The business usage.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
Just a point to clarify that the usage is all paid for by the city. It's the employee's affirmative obligation to click on to a dedicated website where you get to review all of that usage and do that on a monthly basis, identify the ones that are personal, send that in for processing, and your paycheck's docked. So it is just given that the city pays for the whole thing.
Okay.
And then it's up to the employees to chase it, to reimburse, right?
Thank you, John.
Mr. Snow, are you satisfied with this report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am. I believe that the request was to come back and talk to us about things that had been implemented. I think sufficient is done, and I think that if there would be another report, it would just be an information report. I think practically everything's closed out as far as the reporting goes, so I would be satisfied with that.
So the motion then is to accept the report and close the audit?
Close this issue.
To close this issue, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Oak.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 12, discussion and possible action on audit of building and safety permit division. Mr. Snow.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This particular audit, the lead auditor on it was Nancy Beatty, and she's here and will present the results of that report. Also, Paul Wilkins, the Department Director, is also here.
Chair and members of the committee, as part of the annual audit plan, we completed an audit of Building and Safety's permit division. Building and Safety is responsible for ensuring that construction in Las Vegas conforms to business established building codes. Building permits must be obtained before construction is initiated. Our audit dealt with the management controls over this process. Our findings are as follows. We noted various control deficiencies within the legacy systems. Building is in the process of migrating from this system to Hanson, as in addressing all those control issues within Hanson. Within Hanson, under certain circumstances, it was possible to schedule an inspection without obtaining and paying for the permit. Building has worked with Hanson to also correct this. Building permits expire if work has not commenced within 180 days from the date of the permit. The Hanson function that would add these fees into the system was disabled because it was not working correctly. Building is working with Hanson to correct this issue. We noted inconsistencies in the way refunds were processed in Hanson and posted in Oracle. Certain Hanson functions would enable employees to circumvent controls. For example, office specialists who processes payments could delete these transactions, or employees could use a void as a work type instead of having a supervisor void the transactions.
Excuse me, was that happening?
It didn't actually void the permit, but it gave the appearance of it being voided. You could use a work type as instead of like a normal work type would be, like it's over the counter or whatever. Instead, you could use the word void in there. And it gave the appearance that the permit was voided. However, when I did my research, and it was very limited that this was actually used, when I did my research, the permit actually was not voided in the system. The process is to have a supervisor oversight on all void transactions. And this would give like a frontline person the ability to use that in the work type instead. But it did not void the permit.
But were office specialists...
Deleting transactions?
Yes.
I did research at the time I did my audit, the only type of permits processed were like the over-the-counter, the swimming pools, and the type of permits. I was able to do some inquiries to mining materials and isolate all the transactions that related to this. And I followed up on each and every one of them and was able to determine that every time this happened, the permit was issued and fees collected either later that day or within a week. Because sometimes what happens is the person will come to the counter and they don't have all their information available. And so the process should be for the supervisor to void the transaction. And in these cases, they would delete it instead. And so now these people no longer have the ability to delete it. They need to go to the supervisor. Building and Safety personnel prepare monthly revenue and valuation reports. For fiscal year ended June 30th, 2006, the revenue per the internal reports was less than the revenue on the audited financial statements. And the evaluation report did not include refunds that were processed for canceled projects. In reviewing computer access, we noted various individuals with inappropriate access. And we also noted that not all building and safety employees log out or invoke available lockout mechanisms when they leave their workstations unattended. Building and safety management have responded to the audit recommendations. Their action plans and estimated dates of completion are included on page 12 of the report. I would like to thank building and safety personnel for their assistance during this audit. They've been very receptive and have implemented half of my recommendations. I'm open to questions.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to add to what Nancy said, that it was a really good experience. I think that we got great cooperation, and they're a good group to work with. And I remember when we had the exit conference, I talked to Paul. This is the third time we've been in his area in a very short period of time, and he said that he liked us, but he said we were kind of like relatives. We should only come and stay for a couple of days, and he hoped he didn't see us again for a while.
This was around Thanksgiving time.
It's been for the past 10 years, I think.
Couple of questions. The migration that has taken place, is it a full migration from the old system to the new system?
Yes.
And what's the record retention on the old system?
I'm not sure. I'd have to-
You know, I'd have to let, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, call up Yolanda Palomo. She's my supervisor in the permit section. She knows all this in detail.
Please.
To answer these specific questions, before I do that, if it's okay with you, I'd just like to say that, you know, it's been a great experience for us. We're trying to do everything we can. As you know, over the past 15 years, the building departments in the valley have been very busy. For the past 10 years, we've issued over $1 billion every year in valuation. And so actually, things have slowed down a little bit, as you all know. So it's been a good time to have the auditors come in, make these changes when we can. We're going from one computer system to another computer system. On my notes that I have here, there's 8 outstanding things, and we've completed 6 of them. And I promise to you that we will complete all of them when we can. But for any technical questions, I'd like to have Ms. Palomo come up, if it's okay with you.
Thank you. Good morning. Yolanda Palomo. And can you repeat your question for me,
I will.
please?
Is this a full migration from legacy to the Hanson system?
It is.
Does it include the entire history of the legacy system?
The historical items that were initially issued in Legacy are going to stay in Legacy, but we scan everything, so everything is going to be captured in our computer system, and everyone will continue to have access to it.
Do you have a full record retention for what period of time?
We do. We have a retention schedule with our records department, and we maintain that retention schedule and review it on a yearly basis.
I would suggest, and Mr. Snelling, I did not see that in this report, I may have overlooked it, but that's very important in today's environment for record retention purposes. In particular, the lawsuit is directed towards the city. The capability of going into your system, identifying those records and having them readily available. There are too many agencies around the country, like the general benefits, who have not had a full migration, who have turned off the old system, discarded it, and then have wondered when litigation has arisen or questions have arisen with respect to the issuance, in this case, of building permits. Was there not, was it properly handled? So if I'm hearing correctly here, there has been a full migration. The legacy system will stay in place for how long?
I don't know. We'd have to check with IT to see how long we'll have access to Legacy. We're currently in the last phase of migration with the last parts of the commercial permits.
And that will be in compliance with the city's policies for the retention period?
Yes.
Okay.
Part of my audit did look at retention policies and also compared it to the NRS, and their policies were the same as NRS.
Okay. And again, I may have missed it in the report.
They were okay, so I didn't bring it up.
It'd be nice in the future if we could include that, because once again, it is an area that I think we all need to be aware of for any migration that occurs between systems. With respect to the 2 open items, what is the timing for completion?
It appears on the fee assessment, March 2008 is the new date set, and then on the cashiering system, let's see, March of 2008.
Both those issues, as far as our follow-up would be concerned, would be not due yet. So they've actually taken most of the things and they either completed them before we left, or if they needed some extra time, well, then it seems they always have them completed within the schedule that they advise us. These 2 are still out a ways. So I'm confident that it will get They'll get those done in time.
Can we suggest to Paul that if he completes it earlier, he won't be back for quite a while?
I'd like to say that.
Say it.
It just won't come out of my mouth.
Any further discussion?
I had a question on the Hanson fee collections. Why is the difference between the $61 and the $105? Is that generated based on Hanson configuring it wrong?
What I believe happened, and you can correct me, is I believe there's a schedule as to, based upon the valuation of the home or the project, as to what the fee is going to be. And the schedule, and it was set up so that it was one above it and not the one where it was. And in one case, I believe it's either based up on the higher of the calculated or the declared valuation. And one was calculated based upon the lower of the two versus the higher of the two. And they've done testing on them and to make sure that those are no longer
So that's
possible.
all.
And we did do some, I was over there last week, and we did do some testing on it too then.
Thank you.
Any further questions, discussions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move to accept the
Second?
Been moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Agenda item 13, discussion and possible action on internal control review activity report dated June 30, 2007. Mr. Snowden.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Phillips was the lead on this audit, and he'll present the results of our work.
This internal control review, it ended in 6 months, ending 6/30/07, had 8 recommendations. 3 were from field operations, 2 were from leisure services, and 3 were from fleet services. Come on, Brian. Field operation, that was the ICR on the gas step at the Rango Hills Golf Course. There's 3 recommendations on that. Leisure services at the community school soccer tournament, there was 2 recommendations on that one. And fleet services had the gas card theft, there was 3 recommendations on that ICR. And management agreed on all 8 recommendations, and the recommendations will be tracked in our follow-up database. Any questions?
Do we have any questions or discussions on this agenda item? I would accept the motion if there's one.
We'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Double second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Rad's smiling version. He wants more of these. Agenda item 14, discussion and possible action on audit of finance and business services accounting division citywide travel. Mr. Snowden, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Philip Marmorowski was the lead auditor on this one, and he'll present the results of our audit.
Phil Monorowski, City Auditor's Office. City travel in the calendar year 2006, there were 3,000 travel-related transactions valued at $922,000. Audit reviewed in detail $125,000 of the travel transactions. Finance and Business Services has policies and procedures in place to prevent abuse in the area. The audit objectives were to ensure that current policy and procedures have been established in accordance with applicable guidelines, processing and monitoring procedures are in place to prevent abuses, management controls are adequate and operating as intended. Summary of the audit work. City of Las Vegas employees were generally reasonable and prudent in the use of city resources for business travel. Most of the transactions were properly completed, approved, and supporting documentation attached. Identified improvements in the existing travel policies which would standardize policies and procedures and help to eliminate individual interpretations. Enhancements were made to policy, and the final enhancements will be completed by the end of the first quarter of next year. Identified where travel cards were used for personal expenses, policy has been clarified. Mileage expense submissions, our audit identified where better use of fleet vehicles may be considered and insurance requirements for personal vehicles may not be met. Issue has been addressed by management. I would like to thank all the financial service personnel for their help during the audit and the implementation of audit recommendations. Are there any questions?
Question. management responses has estimated date of completion. What's the status?
There is currently one recommendation with regards to the clarification of travel policies where there is about 75% completed, and the balance will be implemented by the end of the first quarter of next year.
Which, Mr. Chairman, I think those are, any of the things that are not completed, they're still well within, I think, their estimated time of having it done.
November 15th?
There's none.
No, it's...
They're saying estimated date of completion,
Right.
November 15th.
They've got 75% completed as of currently, and the other 25% will be next quarter.
And
They
that's-
changed the date. They
That's
changed the
with
date.
respect to travel policy and procedure.
Correct.
With respect to travel cards, has that been completed?
Yes, it has.
And mileage expense submissions? is that
Yes,
completed?
the issue has been addressed and completed.
Question, Red, do we need this to come back for further report for purposes of completion at the next?
Mr. Chairman, we're tracking them in the annual follow-up, and if they don't make that time, if you would like to have a report before then, but we're actually planning on doing the annual follow-up for last year, but if you would like to have an update on the status of these at the next meeting, we can certainly schedule it, but it will be tracked in the follow-up.
Let me pose the following question in this way. The expenses exceeded $922,000 for travel-related. Of the travel-related, approximately $125,000, just under 14%, were
Right.
tested.
We looked at.
The
Audit-
discrepancies that were identified were what dollar magnitude?
Oh, they were very minimal.
So they're minimal. So this, in this case, then, the Finance and Service Division has a strong handle, if I could use that term,
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
with respect to their own internal controls.
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? I would accept the motion if there is one.
Move to accept the report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 15. Before I get there, I would like to, once again, as I generally do, compliment the city auditor and each of the respected auditors working with them. And I especially would like to compliment each of the agencies and departments that have been reviewed. And I can honestly say from the first experience on the very first day that I appeared here, that there have been improvements made, substantial improvements to the point where I think what we're seeing now are areas that are much more important to the city than the cosmetics, if you will, that were creating the bigger problems and the large issues. And that's a true compliment to the city of Las Vegas, and I appreciate everyone's efforts on this. Agenda item 15, citizen participation, if any. If there is, please step up to the microphone and identify yourself. There is none. We would adjourn this meeting at this time. Thank
Really great job.
Real hard.
Very professional.
One lap on the
I've got 9. So if I have 9 airports.
You got it.